The state of California is absolutely stacked in the theme park department, and that especially applies to the dark rides. There are a bunch of sensational rides in the state, and today we're going to count down the top 25 best ones. But before getting into the list, there are a few things I should note. Firstly, well-themed log flumes and boat rides were eligible to make the list. Secondly, I haven't ridden all of these rides myself, but I'll make note of when I haven't ridden a specific attraction, and I rank those rides based on where I guess I would rank them. It's not a perfect science, and I'm probably getting some of them wrong, but I'm going to do my best in that regard. Now, here are 5 rides that I would have loved to included but just missed the cut. Calico Mine Ride, Knott's Berry Farm. Ariel's Undersea Adventure, California Adventure. Web Slingers, a Spider-Man Adventure, California Adventure. Winnie the Pooh, Disneyland. And Haunted Castle at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. These are all great rides, but they just missed the cut. Number 25, Ninjago the Ride at Legoland, California. We're starting it off with one that I have not personally experienced because I've not been to Legoland, but this looks like a pretty solid interactive shooting dark ride. Rather than using guns, like Web Slingers at California Adventure, you use your hands like a superhero to fire at the screens. And for anyone that asks, yes, this ride did come before Web Slingers, so they kind of created that technology. But regardless, this looks like a fun ride even if there aren't too many physical sets. They really leaned into the screen dynamic and it looks as if they did a good job. This is probably the best ride at Legoland, California. Number 24, Toy Story Midway Mania, Disney's California Adventure. The first of many Disney rides we'll see on this list is another interactive shooting dark ride. This ride is very creative and I like the small inclusions of physical sets to go along with those games on the screen. If you're a fan of spinning, then this ride probably isn't for you because Toy Story Midway Mania has some pretty legit spins throughout. This ride will definitely get your competitive juices flowing as you try to continue to get better at the games. It is kind of a learning curve for sure. Once you get the hang of it, it's a fun time, and it's definitely better than Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, the other Toy Story interactive shooting dark ride. Number 23, Snow White's Enchanted Wish at Disneyland. The refurbishment of the old Snow White Scary Adventures is a really good, cute little ride. This ride has the perfect mix of some modern effects with an old classic feeling ride system. It is admittedly pretty short, but what it does offer is very good. The mine scene with the dwarves is awesome. That reminds me a lot of Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Disney's Magic Kingdom. Then, the witch animatronic is probably the best animatronic on the entire ride. There aren't really any dead spots, and it would be the best dark ride in Fantasyland if it wasn't for number 22, Peter Pan's Flight at Disneyland. To be honest, I don't love this ride as much as some others do, and I'm certainly not going to wait in the lengthy queue times that it gets, but when you can get on it early in the morning and you don't have to wait those 45 minutes, it's a good time. The main criticism with Peter Pan is definitely the length. It feels like it's over before it starts in some ways, but I'm glad that they included everything they did. Flying above the scenes in the ship is such a cool sensation in comparison to typically going through it like a normal dark ride. That's definitely the main selling point of this ride, and it works quite well. Also, the physical sets are pretty nicely fleshed out, especially for an older type ride. Number 21, Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin at Disneyland. This one is located in the newly refurbished Toontown section of the park. This ride is kind of crazy and all over the place, especially when you spin it. That is the main pro of this ride if you want to make it a little more extreme. I think spinning a little bit actually helps you take in some of the sights because there is a lot of color and a lot of things to see in these rooms. This used to be the best ride in Toontown, but with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which we will see later on this list, that's not the case anymore. But that's not Roger Rabbit's fault. This is a fun time, and I definitely recommend getting a ride on it while you're in Toontown. Number 20, Knott's Berry Tales, Return to the Fair. Hey look, a non-Disney ride. Speaking of refurbishments, this is a refurbishment of the old Voyage to the Iron Reef, and this reskinning works so much better for Knott's Berry Farm. It's a very cute attraction. The guns and screens seem to respond pretty well on this one, and I like how the guns themselves look like jam containers. Brilliant. There aren't too many physical sets, it is pretty screen-based, but the small physical sets that they do have work nicely, and it's a nice change of pace. Overall, I think this is a perfect fit for Knott's Berry Farm. Voyage to the Iron Reef just didn't work, but this one does, for sure. Number 19, Justice League Battle for Metropolis at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Here's another one I haven't been on since I haven't visited Magic Mountain as of this recording. I'm basically just judging this off POVs, but it looks like a pretty solid ride, and it's great that Magic Mountain has some sort of dark ride, even if it is a pretty screen-based one. The ending does look a little bit chaotic, but otherwise, it looks like a pretty solid attraction from Sally Dark Rides. I'm of the opinion that every single park should have at least one dark ride, and for Magic Mountain, they at least got one. Number 18, The Simpsons at Universal Studios Hollywood. Here's another one that I haven't been on. Reason was because the line was so long our entire visit to Universal Studios Hollywood. The line for this was over an hour for most of the day, where rides like Revenge of the Mummy and Jurassic World had 20-minute waits or less, so we just never made time to go on The Simpsons, but it looks like a really fun ride. Unlike your typical flying simulator ride, this does not take you past famous landmarks. It's a crazy, very Simpsons-esque adventure. I also like how they poke fun at some of their competitors like Disney in this Pirates scene, and I look forward to getting on it at some point in the future. Number 17, Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. This ranking may seem low to some, and perhaps it is, but there was no disrespect. Haunted Mansion is an absolute classic, and it all starts with the stretching room. This has got to be one of the best pre-show and pre-show effects of all time. Such an expertly done pre-show. The ride itself has some great effects up its sleeve as well, especially when you consider that this ride opened in 1969. These effects were ahead of their time. I know some stuff has been added since then, but generally speaking, my favorite effects are the Pepper's Ghost in the ballroom, the Hatbox Ghost, and the Shadow playing the piano. Haunted Mansion is just one of those rides that if you're a Disney fan, it's hard not to like. Number 16, Transformers the Ride at Universal Studios Hollywood. This is the last one on the list that I haven't personally experienced because it was closed on the day of our visit, and I was sad about that because this looks like a really good ride. It is another screen-based attraction, but you know what, screens are fine if they're used well, and on Transformers it looks like they are used pretty well. This ride does look slightly chaotic, which is fitting for the Transformers franchise, that's for sure. Overall, I hope I can get on this soon. Number 15, Mass Effect: A New Earth at California's Great America. Yeah, CGA does have a dark ride in Mass Effect, and it's a good one too. This is a terrific simulator-style experience, but one of the great things about it is the live actors standing in front of the screen. It really ties it all together and makes it feel more real in a sense. The screen quality is good, and there are some physical effects to go along with it, which goes a long way to making the experience more well-rounded. Additionally, the motion here is well synced up. Altogether, it's a great simulator ride. It's just too bad that there's absolutely zero theming in the queue. That would make it more enjoyable, I think. Number 14, Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge at Universal Studios Hollywood. This is one of the newer rides on the list, and overall, they did a great job. I'm not a Mario fan, so I can't appreciate everything that they threw into this ride that a Mario Kart enthusiast would, but even still, I really enjoyed what they did here. The AR goggles are hit and miss for me. On the one hand, I think they're really neat, and they provide a super unique element. On the other hand, I think the physical sets could stand on their own. Put them together and you got yourself a pretty good combo. Universal Studios Hollywood needs more non-screen based attractions, and with the roller coaster coming in 2025 and with this ride just being added, they're starting to add more non-screen rides. I love it. Number 13, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run at Disneyland. This is a terrific simulator type attraction. One of the many simulator rides we've seen on this list, but this is one of the better ones. I mean, who doesn't want to pilot the Millennium Falcon? I mean, seriously, it's so cool to get an experience like that. And depending on how bad your pilots are, it can be an extremely hilarious experience. We've had those experiences. I may or may not have been one of those pilots. It's such a fun time. I could care less about Hondo Wanaka, but when you're in the Millennium Falcon, it does not matter. It's so cool, and it looks so lifelike. Number 12, Soaring Around the World at Disney's California Adventure. This is the type of ride that you probably think of when the word simulator or flying meteor is used. It's a slower paced journey past famous landmarks and nature spots, with the soundtrack being one of the best for any ride ever. The soundtrack definitely ties the entire thing together because the screen is very good for the most part, especially if you get a good seat in the middle, but that element is really what makes this whole thing work. Also, some of the transitions are creative, which is nice in comparison to just a simple fade transition or something like that. Soarin' is wonderful, and there's no reason why you feel the urge to clap when you reach the end of your ride. Number 11, Timber Mountain Log Ride at Knott's Berry Farm. Let's go away from the Disney rides for a moment to appreciate one of the best classic log flumes ever. The drops on this aren't the greatest thing ever, but they don't really need to be incredible because the rest of the ride is so solid. There are a lot of things to see, and I actually wish you traveled a little bit slower through the course so you could catch all the little details. In some ways, this ride is a pioneer for the theme park industry, and I'm so glad Knott's Berry Farm has kept it up as well as they have. The indoor forest style bit is probably my favorite moments of the ride, and the final drop, while as I said earlier isn't the greatest thing ever, it's a nice way to cool off on a hot day. Number 10, Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash at Universal Studios Hollywood. Now this is a superb physical sets-based dark ride, a type of ride that Universal Studios Hollywood needed desperately. There is so much to take in on this one, and it takes multiple rides to see everything, which unfortunately we didn't get. We only got the one ride, but it was a memorable one. A ride like this proves that Universal can do a physical sets-based ride. They aren't just screens, they really can do the animatronic thing. Definitely give it a whirl while you're at the park, you won't regret it. Number 9, Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey at Universal Studios Hollywood. This is one of the most unique dark rides ever built. The robot arm ride system is very engaging and not anything like your traditional dark ride. A POV really doesn't do this ride justice at all because from a POV, it's tough to tell what's going on sometimes, and that's not the case in person. The screen-based bits are well synchronized, but my favorite parts are definitely when they incorporate physical sets. Like the dragon, for example, that is absolutely fantastic. Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey is one of those rides that's almost tough to describe. You really have to go experience it for yourself, and if you don't have motion sickness, you'll really enjoy it. Number 8, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout at California Adventure. Some may fight me on the fact that I'm considering this a dark ride, but I think it has enough dark ride elements that it counts. Like Haunted Mansion, it all starts with that pre-show. The pre-show with Rocket the Raccoon is wonderful, and he is a fantastic animatronic. As for the ride itself, the dark ride bits are okay, but the drop tower bits are sensational. The floater airtime you get on this ride almost seems like it should be too much for a Disney park. This is the best airtime at the Disneyland Resort, no questions asked. And as someone who loves floater airtime, I'm okay with being out of my seat more than I'm in my seat. This ride really is fantastic, but it definitely isn't for the faint of heart. Number 7, Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland. This is a classic among classics, and the definition of a physical sets-based dark ride. The sets are definitely the highlight. The thrills are pretty small. There really only are those 2 drops at the beginning. But that's fine, considering how darn detailed the rest of the experience is. I found that oftentimes it seems like the ride duration is longer than your duration in line, which is pretty crazy. It's so immersive, and the scale of some of these sets is just ridiculous. I truly hope this ride never gets removed. That would be a very sad day. Number 6, Jurassic World the Ride at Universal Studios Hollywood. This is similar to Pirates of the Caribbean in a lot of ways, but I just found I personally enjoyed Jurassic World a little bit more. This ride is very well done, and there are a couple of highlights. The screen with the Megalosaurus at the beginning is very good, but the finale is by far the best part of this attraction. You get thrust right into the middle of an epic showdown between the Indominus Rex and the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and the scale of those animatronics is amazing. They are such a sight to behold, and that leads to one of the best drops on any boat ride, certainly better than the drops on Pirates of the Caribbean. Terrific animatronics, terrific finale, and a terrific way to cool off on a hot day. Number 5, Minnie and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Disneyland. A new addition for Californians, this is another one that mixes physical sets and screens seamlessly well. The cartoonish appearance of the entire ride works so well together. If that wasn't enough, you're also in a trackless vehicle, so you never know where you're going to go next. I'm surprised it took as long as it did for Mickey to get his own dark ride, but boy, he got a fantastic one, and I think it's a top 5 dark ride in the state of California. Number 4, Indiana Jones Temple of the Forbidden Eye at Disneyland. Man, this is also just such an impressive dark ride from a scale perspective. This ride only seems to be getting better. They just added a couple of new effects last year, and those are looking great. Like Soarin', the soundtrack is one of the highlights for me. It's so expertly done, and it really sets the mood for each part of the ride. There is zero wasted space on Indiana Jones, and you never reach a moment where you feel like it wasn't done as well as it could have been, or they chinched a little bit of money on this one section. It's all so good. Looking back on it now, it's weird to think that I used to think this ride was okay at best. Now, I can't get enough of it. It's sensational. Number 3, Splash Mountain at Disneyland. Yeah, Splash Mountain is closed forever, and it's going to be turned into Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Will Tiana's Bayou Adventure be good? Probably. Will it be as good? Probably not. Even if the ride in question is technically defunct, I'm including it on the list anyway just because of how good Splash Mountain was. So, in honor of it, let's review what this ride had to offer. Not all the animatronics were that great from a quality perspective because some of them were reused from an old attraction, but because there were so many of them, it worked anyway. Besides It's a Small World, this might be one of the catchiest theme songs on any ride, except you actually want this theme song stuck in your head. Another great thing about this ride, and this is something that won't change, is the length. This is a very long log flume, much longer than Timber Mountain Log Ride at Knott's Berry Farm. I love all the sets, but ultimately, the highlight of the ride is that plunge. This is something we can still look forward to on Tiana's Bayou Adventure. This is one of the best drops on any ride, period, even if there isn't any airtime. For whatever reason, there's just a different gut wrench when it's on a log flume in comparison to a roller coaster. And after the drop, that finale scene was fantastic as well. Number 2, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance at Disneyland. This is actually the last Disneyland ride on the list, and objectively, you could argue Rise of the Resistance is the best ride ever built. You've probably heard the story by now, but the preload experience is the best of any ride on Earth. No ride on the planet gets you more immersed in the environment before you even step foot in the ride vehicle. Absolutely tremendous job by Disney on the pre-board section, and then the ride itself is out of this world. The trackless ride system is really neat, as I touched on earlier, and then everything is so well done. The effects, the screens, the scale of those AT-ATs, it's so cool. I think the ride has an excellent finale as well with that surprise drop track and the simulator bit. It's such a fun way to end such a fun experience. Objectively, I think this is the best ride in California and the best ride ever built, but subjectively, it's not my favorite. Number 1, Radiator Springs Racers, Disney's California Adventure. The margin between these two, in my opinion, is so close. It's splitting hairs, and you could argue either way, but I just have a little bit more fun on Radiator Springs Racers. This one is really split up into 3 parts. The outdoor bit at the beginning is underrated, and then the indoor bit features some amazing animatronics, my favorite of the bunch probably being Mater. This is one of those attractions that really brings the characters you've seen on screen to life right in front of your eyes. There's also a good deal of rewritability because more than just how good it is, you can either go into Luigi's room on the left or go into Ramon's room on the right, and plus, to the race later on, you never know if you're going to win or not. Speaking of said race, it's not as fast as Test Track or anything, but it's fast enough to get your competitive juices flowing and to get the wind in your hair. There's also a few deceptively forceful turns and helixes here. So overall, Radiator Springs Racers, in my opinion, is the best dark ride in California. And as we've seen, that's really saying something.